My wife passed away when my sons were 8 and 4, respectively. Since then, I've remarried, and my new wife and I have been married for some 11 years now. She was married before and had a daughter of her own from a past marriage. Her ex-husband's story is its own saga, but suffice it to say, he's alive but isn't in their life anymore. When we married, my stepdaughter was 12, now 23. For 11 years, I tried to make some bridges, and I would get her gifts and ensure she always got what she wanted. I did everything I could to make her happy. I would drive her to school, be her extracurricular, and pay for the nicest private schools I could. Not to mention, I worked day and night so I could give her the lifestyle she deserved. My wife is a housewife, a choice she made after she voluntarily quit her job in marketing. I tried my best and treated her just like my sons, but she continued to hate me. This came to a head when my stepdaughter graduated about 5 years ago. When my eldest son had invited my wife, his stepmom, to his graduation, my stepdaughter refused to invite me. She had 2 tickets, but she only invited her mother. Her grandparents refused as they live in my wife's native country. When I asked why, she said, "You're not my dad. You didn't raise me, and I don't want you in my life." I was heartbroken. I tried very hard for her to like me, but she hated me. Still, I paid for her college. I paid for both of my sons' college. Nevertheless, a few months back, she informed my wife that she would be getting married. I only found out what my wife told me. Even more devastating was that she said she would come home to celebrate, and I bought a cake, balloons, and so much more. Then last minute, she changed plans. She just told my wife that she should come over to our apartment without my sons and me. I was shattered. When I eventually called to congratulate her, she just tried to end the conversation as quickly as possible. The last thing I asked was maybe the honor of having a father-daughter dance with her, which she shot down. I said nothing, but then I got the bill for $160,000, and my wife said she needed some extra money for her daughter's wedding. I considered it long and hard, but clearly, as she didn't consider me her father, I said I wouldn't be paying for her wedding. I told my wife that she had the money saved up. It was her choice to use that if she wanted, but I would not be paying for her wedding. She was furious at me, and she said she barely had any money saved up, and I was an awful person. I've received calls from my wife's family telling me that I should pay, mainly her immediate family, like my father-in-law and brother-in-law. The whole thing has become a mess. It has divided our family, but I'm still holding my ground. Am I the idiot? Edit. I want to also clarify that this is going to be far from a minor financial inconvenience. While I am sufficiently wealthy, it's still not something that'll go easy on my bank account. My wife's family is Indian. Her ex-husband was Indian, and my stepdaughter is Indian. Her wedding's going to have probably around 400 to 600 people. Also, we had a baby boy. It wasn't planned, and he's a toddler now, after my daughter graduated. I assure you, my stepdaughter was just as cold with me before the baby, and the event at her graduation happened before my daughter knew about the pregnancy. $160,000? And you're not invited? Why on earth would you pay for this? You are not the idiot. She's used to using your money. That should have stopped long ago, but now is as good a time as any. Frankly, your wife holds a lot of responsibility as to why your stepdaughter doesn't respect you. It would appear you're paying for private school and paying for her college is not a good enough reason for your wife to have some very strong conversations with your daughter about respect and what family actually means. The wife is a straight-up gold digger. I really hope OP has a prenup that is enforced when he divorces her, which he very much should. I wonder if the wife's family has ever seen OP as anything more than an ATM. Now that the ATM has refused to dispense any more money, they're furious. How much more is OP supposed to bend over backward for them? Just say good riddance, OP. You'll be better off without them. Yeah, she's Indian. We Indians are proud people, but she's none of that. She treated this generous man worse than a stranger after he spent so much time, effort, and money on her. Any Indian would show at least some appreciation, or at least they would not accept so much when they can't even give a little kindness in return. But the girl kept taking everything and giving back, not even a sliver of kindness. Heck, my bio dad didn't even pay for any of my college. But I need to ask, why did you ask for a father-daughter dance when you know she doesn't feel that way about your relationship? I understand and respect that you tried to treat her as your own. You treated her above and beyond when maybe she didn't deserve it. But do you feel that maybe you overstepped throughout her life? It made her so uncomfortable that she didn't even want a relationship with you. Update. Am I the idiot for refusing to spend my money on my stepdaughter's wedding? After much thinking and long conversation with my wife and I decided. Firstly, my wife understands where I'm coming from. In the original conversation with my wife, I put my foot down without properly explaining my reasoning behind that decision. I was just angry, and I should have communicated better. After explaining, however, my wife sympathized with me and said she didn't know what the right thing to do here was either, but she said she'd do whatever I think is right. We came to the following conclusion. For what it's worth, we'll give her $50,000. This is more than plenty for a great wedding. It's less than a third of the $160,000 she wanted from us and a fourth of the estimated $200,000 her wedding would cost. Not to mention, her fiancé's dad is giving her around $50,000. My wife also further informed our daughter that neither of us would be attending the wedding. This was a decision my wife made of her own volition. After informing her on the call, she came to our home to pick up the check. We told her that this would be the last money we would be giving her. She stated it was better that we cut her out of our life anyway, as she didn't want me to ruin her new life. My wife and I were angry, but everyone held their tongue. Finally, she left and she'll no longer be a part of our life. Dude, I would call the bank and cancel the payment on the check after her last comment. Your wife must be so proud of the daughter she raised. Jesus, you certainly are a very gracious, generous man and father who has done much to support, educate, and financially cover quite a bit. I am completely astonished that this young woman has treated you so abominably, denying that you're a father figure in her life, even though you financially support her mother and this horrible brat. The fact that she seemingly hated you, yet had no qualms about taking your money, is not only completely outrageous, but also so extremely hypocritical. I really wish you had refused to pay for her. I'm truly sorry that she's been not only disdainful of your efforts, but also maliciously cruel towards your feelings. Please create a will or update it that completely disowns this malicious woman. She doesn't deserve any inheritance after treating you so poorly, but it's almost guaranteed that she'll fight your bio children for what she feels is her rightful due. If you can easily blow $50K, I guess that's a small price to pay to get rid of this headache forever. I hope you can move on from this and find love in your children. She isn't worth feeling sad over, OP. No offense. If she darkens your doorstep in the future, please stick to your word and don't help her. It sucks that you lost someone who you considered family, but you can now focus on your other children and give them everything they deserve. You have a lot of love to give. Save it for the right people. My best friend, Chris, and I are expecting our first babies with our wives. My wife is 36-ish weeks. I believe Chris's wife, Polly, is around 28 weeks. Chris and I are very different in how we treat our wives in their pregnancies. Chris still has Polly do a lot, whereas I'll take the weight off my wife in any possible way I can. Even small things, mainly because I feel utterly useless, and I don't want my wife straining herself to do things I could easily do myself while she's growing my baby, and uncomfortable anyway. But I guess I messed up the other day. So Chris and Polly invited us out on their boat to go swimming and fishing. My wife was a bit uncomfortable because she's getting closer to her due date and is just afraid of going into early labor. so her anxiety is a bit heavier than usual. Well, Chris kept asking Polly to get up and do crap for him, and I would go right behind her and say, "No, sit down, I've got it," and essentially did the same thing I would do with my wife. Well, there's a store along the lake that we stopped off at so I could grab some beers, and Polly asked me to grab her a few things, so I did, a mixture of snacks and drinks, like 4 to 5 items. When I got back to the boat, my wife looked in the bag I got and was immediately angry and didn't talk to anyone for easily an hour. I had no idea why she was so upset. So when we stopped and Chris and Polly jumped in to swim, I asked what was wrong, and she was like, "Pretty darn pathetic that you get her literally everything she asked for, and you couldn't even get me the one thing I asked for." I told her I didn't hear her ask for anything, and she said, "Yeah, because you were so busy doting on someone else's pregnant wife, you couldn't pay attention to what your own wife was saying." I honestly didn't hear her, but then Chris got back on the boat a bit later and looked at my wife and said, "Where's your drink?" And my wife just glared at me. So apparently my buddy heard my wife, but I didn't, which of course just adds fuel to my wife's anger because it looks really bad. I was right beside my wife, and Chris was on the other side of the boat, so I should have heard her. Later on in the night, she told me that she's never been so uncomfortable in her life because Polly and Chris both noticed that I didn't get my wife the one thing she asked for after getting Polly everything she asked for, so it embarrassed her, and that she's not comfortable with me doting on Chris's wife at all, and that she doesn't want to hang out with them for a while because she's now insecure over this. I was just trying to be nice. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. You're getting off the boat and took a grocery list for another woman. Even if you didn't hear your wife, an actual doting husband would say something like, "Hey babe, is there anything you want from the market?" So you didn't hear or ask her because you were so busy being a honey for another woman. Your wife should be enraged right now. You were so busy trying to show up your buddy for not meeting his responsibilities. You messed up and ignored your own responsibilities. This doesn't make sense. If you've been bending over backward to make your wife's life convenient for the past 30-ish weeks, then I doubt she'd react this strongly the one time you messed up and didn't listen. Have you asked your wife's perspective on how you've been during her pregnancy? It's possible you haven't been as helpful as you think. The way your wife reacted, I just can't imagine that this is the first time you've made her feel that way. My 28 male background. In the house I grew up in, everyone would eat whatever food my parents made and be thankful for it. I can't recall anything tasting bad, but even foods I don't like, I just wouldn't eat and never modified them. It's just the way it's always been. I can't even imagine one of my siblings doing it to my parents or my parents doing it to one another. Back to my girlfriend, 24. I love her very much. Still, she sometimes does strange things to food that makes me feel unappreciated for whatever reason I can't explain. For instance, I bought protein bars coated in dark chocolate. I shared them with her. Later, I saw a bunch of them naked in a plastic bag. She cut off the coating and left the center. She said she doesn't like the center, but the chocolate is tasty. I suggested I buy her dark chocolate since this is a waste, but she said she didn't like that specific chocolate and I could just eat the center if I'd like. No, I don't just want to eat the center. I want to enjoy the entire protein bar. Another example from today is that I made chicken curry. She had it before, and she said she really liked it. Today, I walked into her washing the cooked chicken bits and rinsing them in water. I was really confused. She started laughing and said, "Don't look at me." I didn't find it funny. It was quite offensive. It was a waste of food and just disrespect to my cooking. This started an argument, which led to her crying. She has the right to eat her food however she wants, but this doesn't change the fact that I find it upsetting when she wastes food and messes with my cooking. I asked her how she would feel if I did the same with her cooking, to which she responded, "I want you to enjoy the food in the way you like it." So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Washing the what off the chicken curry? The only way that would even be remotely considered a normal thing to do as if she has some intolerance or allergy to it, and it doesn't seem like that's the case here. I've never seen anyone wash the spice off of a curried meat, unless they were feeding it to a toddler who wanted the same meal as the family, in which case it would be pretty normal in the interest of avoiding a tantrum, etc. I'm stuck on how she wasted OP's money by scraping off the chocolate for herself and leaving naked granola bars for him, as if she did him a favor. That's beyond not appreciating the cost of things, in my opinion. It's not caring about OP's feelings at all. After all, she thinks it's perfectly fine to waste his food and leave him scraps because she believes she's entitled to taking the best parts for herself. Unreal. This is the red flag. This is the mark of an utterly self-centered person. At 2 years old, you expect this behavior. By 24, a person should have some empathy for the other people around them and behave accordingly. Dude, run, or spend your life surviving on scraps. And I don't mean just food. All your needs will be fulfilled with leftovers, if at all. I'm male 33, am a single dad to my daughter, teen. She's my buddy, and I honestly love her so much. My sister, female 38, has 3 boys, and has made being a boy mom her entire personality. She always goes on about how she loves being a boy mom and how raising boys is so much easier than having a girl. I usually just ignore it. My daughter's a huge Taylor Swift fan, and I took her to the opener night of the Eras tour. I am not a Taylor Swift fan, honestly, but it was really fun seeing my daughter have so much fun and just overall being so happy. Last night, I was over at my mom's, and my daughter pretty much only wanted to talk about the concert. My sister happened to be there too. My daughter talked about having to wait about an hour to get merch. My sister laughed and ended up going on a rant, saying how she's so glad she doesn't have a daughter and how easy it is to raise boys compared to girls. She even went as far as to say she felt bad for me having to be a girl dad. My daughter didn't want to talk anymore and was clearly upset by my sister's words. That was very upsetting to me. I told my sister she was wrong to say those things, especially in front of my daughter, and that she's toxic and honestly stupid for thinking raising boys is easier than raising girls. I told her she needed to find a new personality outside of being a boy mom. She ended up leaving while calling me the biggest idiot. My mom also accused me of being rude and an idiot because my sister just loves her boys, and I shouldn't judge her for thinking girls would be more difficult to raise. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It sounds like your sister's projecting. If she had 3 kids on purpose, she 100% wanted a girl and just never got one. So now that she's done having kids, she's using her anti-girl rhetoric and boy mom perspective as a coping strategy. That's just a guess though. Either way, it's super weird of her to hyperfixate on the gender of her children that much and just plain rude to impose that on your daughter. Good for you for standing up for her. Oh, she's just a filthy misogynist. Unfortunately, some people actually think the way this sister does, and it was super important for OP to say that in front of the daughter. That kind of talk is damaging to young girls. Lots of people think boys are easier to raise just because they only bother to parent girls and do nothing with their boys. Oh my God, this. Anyone who thinks boys are easier to raise is dropping the ball massively. Gender is irrelevant. Children are individuals. OP, she basically laughed at your daughter's personality and interest. You weren't rude because she loves her boys. You were rude because she insulted your daughter in front of her. And your mom is an idiot too, LOL. Wow, she's actually defending the same bad behavior in your sister as you're being accused of. Very toxic and pathetic. I'm a big guy. For non-Americans, think of the size of rugby players. Not to mention my poor knees are crap, and I have a bad lower back. Then factor in that I travel by plane often for work. My job reimburses for flights, but they only pay for a basic seat. Any upgrades come out of pocket. Thankfully, I make a decent enough living that most of the time I spring for an upgrade to economy comfort or even business class. If I have enough points or the flight is cheap enough, I spring for first class, but only if it's a longer haul flight. If it's a regional flight, I just suck it up, save the cash, and sit in economy. My in-laws invited me and my girlfriend, Diana, on a trip. We paid our own way, FYI. The trip would be 7 hours, so I told my girlfriends and my in-laws that I paid for an upgrade to business class, and they were cool with it. But in reality, I had something else cooking. Diana has never flown first class, and as a special surprise for her, I upgraded our seats to first class and would tell her at the airport. So for all the reasons I listed above, and for Diana, I got us upgraded to first. I was so excited to see her reaction, I could barely hold it in. When we got to the airport and the first class passengers were called, I looked at my girlfriend and told her, "Let's go." She said they hadn't called our cabin yet, and I told her to look closer at her boarding pass, and she looked and was stunned. Father-in-law just laughs and shakes his head. Mother-in-law is stunned, but doesn't look happy. Long story short, we had a ball in first class. She loved it and thanked me repeatedly. She only said to tell her in advance next time so that she can dress more bougie. We get off the plane, and mother-in-law is angry at me. She said, "How could you leave father-in-law and her to ride in coach while we live it up in first?" To be fair, father-in-law really didn't care, and he said he slept the whole way. He then told mother-in-law that he'd have left us too if he had the money. Mother-in-law said we should all go first together, or not at all, that it isn't really fair or a good look to have two parties be in different classes like that. I said we were originally in business, and she said there's a world of difference between business and first class. She said I could have at least sprung for economy comfort or business class for everyone rather than be selfish. I talked with Diana afterward, and she said that while she enjoyed the surprise, she said that maybe I should have saved it for a private trip for the two of us rather than with her parents. I still don't think it's a big deal, but I've been wrong in the past. So am I the idiot for buying first class tickets and leaving my in-laws to rot in coach? Not the idiot. Mother-in-law sounds a bit entitled. She was sitting with her husband. She wasn't left to rot. If she wanted first class, she could have sprung for her own ticket. I've been on a flight where my parents were upgraded to first class, and we teen kids were left in the cheap seats. We didn't whine about it. You left me to rot? I love the emotionally charged language that people fall back on when they have no real arguments. You know they're clutching at straws when this crap gets thrown out. Your mother-in-law sounds bitter and entitled. Also, it's weird that she claims it isn't a good look to have separate classes. What? If everyone was already paying their own way, I'm really not sure of the problem. I'm tall for a girl, 5'9", and I don't want to sit in economy. My legs are insanely long, and I'm just not doing it. I don't blame you for sitting elsewhere. You are the idiot. We're having a ball in first class? That's like going on a family vacation, but you stay in a 5-star hotel while your parents stay in Motel 6, or ordering a steak for yourself while getting cup noodles for the in-laws. Your girlfriend is right that this would be more appropriate to do if it was just the trip for the two of you, instead of with the in-laws. Now your girlfriend can't even gush about the fun experience without reminding her parents that they were purposely left out. They invited you to spend time with them. This was a group trip, and then you secretly organized something to separate the group. I, a teen female, have had a bad year. My mom died in February, and nothing has gone well since then. She and my bio father were never married, and he wasn't around while I was growing up. I vaguely remember that he visited once when I was really little, but otherwise he hasn't been around. He says it was because he wasn't ready to be a dad, so it was better that he sent my mom child support and stayed away. Whatever. My mom doesn't have a lot of family, so when she died, My bio father was the one who was asked to take me, and he agreed. I wasn't a fan of the idea, but no one really cares what I think, and it's better than being in a group home I was at while they figured everything out. He's been okay and mostly lets me do my thing. His wife, Cheryl, treats me like I came from juvie and bothers me about everything, from my clothes to the way I do laundry to telling me not to get in trouble, like I can't just go to school without doing something shady. They have 2 sons, a young grammar schooler and an older toddler. The older one mimics her riding my butt. I told my bio father, and he said he'd talk to her, but now she does it when he's not around. Her family visited this weekend, and her mom asked how I was settling in at school. Cheryl commented that I was staying out of trouble. I was nearby, and it just hit her nerve, so I said, "Why do you think I would get in trouble?" She looked embarrassed and said she knew I came from a rougher area and might not know how things worked here. I asked her what she meant by rougher area, and she said it was more urban. Her mom was embarrassed for her and said she was sure I'd always been well behaved. I asked Cheryl why she thought living in the city meant I would get into trouble. My bio father walked up then, and the subject changed. But later Cheryl was mad because I embarrassed her in front of her mom and implied things. I think her mother must have said something. Bio father asked me about what had happened, and now they're mad at each other, but he says I should have talked to him instead of picking a fight. Edit. I have a feeling the quiet part is that I'm brown. My mom was full Blackfoot, and bio father and his family, and like 99% of the people here, are white. I look a lot like my mom when she was my age. Beautiful. You are not the idiot, but you uncovered her bias in such a clever way that she outed herself as the idiot in front of everyone. You just kept feeding her rope as she professionally hung herself. LOL. Excellent job. I still can't get over what an idiot the dad is too. Like, yeah, stepmom is a big idiot, but dad wasn't ready to be a parent, but has been ready for 6 years with stepmom and made 2 kids. He only just now entered OP's life because he had to. Her mom died 7 months ago. All OP had for all her life was her mom. I hope your father gets better at having your back here, and I hope your stepmother starts treating you better. I have a feeling the quiet part is that I'm brown. This is precisely what I was looking for in your edit before I commented, because of everything your father's wife has been saying. Are bog standard bigoted dog whistles, phrases that don't sound much on their own, but are pitched for who they want picking up on it. Good on you for calmly, maturely, and intelligently getting her to step in her own crap. And of course, I'm so sorry you're having to go through all this. It'll get better in time, especially when you can get distance from your bio dad's toxic wife. My 28 male, girlfriend 25, is low contact with her parents and older sister. She has a difficult relationship with them. She felt bullied by her sister Cora, 31, growing up. Her mother was frequently ill and depressed, and her father traveled for work for months at a time. They were kind of poor, so Cora did multiple jobs since her teens and was controlling and domineering with her siblings about chores and schoolwork. My girlfriend has a lot of resentment about her unpleasant childhood and is pushed back by sabotaging things for Cora in silly and petty ways. Cora got married to her boyfriend of 3 years about 6 months ago. My girlfriend flew over to attend, but did act bratty to mess with Cora. It was mostly minor stuff, like not confirming travel plans till the last minute, so Cora was forced to pay more for plane tickets. Changing her mind about her dress frequently, so Cora had to buy and return outfits multiple times. There were a few other things too, like messing with some organized plans and refusing to do things she committed to. I don't really like it or understand it, but she feels it's important for such payback to bring a balance to her relationship with her sister. Where I feel she went too far is that the night before the wedding, she had a long talk with the groom about how difficult and short-tempered Cora can be. He has a kid, male young grammar school aged, from his previous marriage, and she knew they were planning on having more kids right away after they got married. So she told him that Cora hates little children and will bully them. The newlyweds ended up having a lot of fights over their honeymoon because the groom wanted to postpone having kids and change how much involvement Cora would have with her stepkid. Cora found out recently that the conflicts are because of her sister, who had a talk with her husband, and she's been blowing up at my girlfriend. She feels upset at my girlfriend's interference because she wanted to have kids soon, and my girlfriend feels justified because she's convinced Cora would be an awful mother. I told her that it wasn't right for her to meddle in her sister's marriage, just to mess with her, but she felt that nothing she said was untrue, so she was morally right to do so. We've been having arguments about this, and my girlfriend is now mad at me. Not the idiot. Based on this and your girlfriend being mad, you better run. You say girlfriend is mad because growing up, their mother was ill and depressed, and the father wasn't around due to work, leaving them in a poor condition and requiring Cora as a teen to have to work multiple jobs helping with the home, and got on your girlfriend about chores and schoolwork. So by being forced to parent her siblings as a teen and being tough about homework and chores, girlfriend feels justified in sabotaging her sister? It sounds more ungrateful than anything. Dude, you need to run. These kinds of games at that age are such a red flag. What happens when she feels morally justified to get back at you? Does she feel slighted by her mother or other close family? Any future children you might want? This is cruelty and pettiness on a narcissistic level, and she needs help. Agreed. Your girlfriend is not a good person. I'd be afraid of what your girlfriend plans for you. She deliberately tried to wreck her sister's life at her wedding, no less. I'm surprised the groom even took her remarks seriously, because someone who would behave that way and say those things at a sibling's wedding is clearly unhinged. Quit making excuses for this woman. You say you haven't even known her for a year, so your investment here is still relatively low. I admit that this doesn't put her in the best light, but she is generally smart and sweet. She can hold a grudge, though. I'm trying to understand and help her, because childhood abuse can mess people up. She's nice in other areas of her life. It's just with her sister, she goes a bit off. I don't think she sees it as wrecking her sister's life. She said that the brother-in-law comes across as a very sweet guy, and she felt obliged to warn him of what he'll be facing. She does admire her sister, who's become quite successful. Oh, come on. You cannot be this naive. After messing with her sister, via traveling and dresses, you cannot fathom that what she said to brother-in-law was done out of anything other than altruistic concern. If it was the only thing she did, there'd be plausible deniability. But with all the rest of it, no way. Your girlfriend is jealous of her sister's success and wedding and says brother-in-law is a very sweet guy? Do you really want to be a part of this? You need to wake up. My 33 female, older brother, 40, has 3 preschool-age kids. I myself have no children by choice. We never were very close, but he always asked for help with the kids. Saturday was a beautiful day. My husband and I had plans to spend the day in our pool. At 10 a.m., he calls me and asks me to come over and help with the kids for an hour or two because his wife is going to get her nails done. I declined and told him what my plans were. He has a fit, saying that I could come to help him and then go home and still spend all day in the pool, which is true. He only lives about 15 minutes from me, but honestly, I just didn't want to have to spend the morning with his kids and wasn't really in the mood to babysit. So I again said no, hung up, and had a nice day with my husband. Later that day, I got a nasty text from sister-in-law about not helping out. She was angry she had to cancel her nail appointment. She pretty much called me an immature idiot for not helping. My mom thinks I could have just gone over there for an hour or two, since it really wouldn't have messed with my plans, and I had no real reason not to. Now I feel like an idiot. Edit. He's never been alone with them. My mom or his mother-in-law are always there. Sister-in-law really doesn't do much either. It's mostly my mom and his mother-in-law that take care of them. Did I read this correctly? A 40-year-old parent can't keep his own kids alive for a few hours, and a third party is somehow to blame? Daddy-o can't parent his children for a few hours to give his wife a little me time, so it's OP's fault? Not the idiot. Tell me how much this man dislikes his kids without pointing to his failure to have a good relationship with his younger sister. I couldn't believe the sister-in-law canceled her appointment. What the heck? I read this not realizing that the outcome could be that it's unreasonable that the guy can't parent his kids for a couple of hours alone. Can it be that he's managed to father 3 kids under 5 and done no solo parenting? What a terrible partner. Wow, just wow. So your sister-in-law needed a babysitter for your brother. Just tell them your rates. If you can't handle 3 kids, then don't have 3 kids. That's just pathetic. Honestly, I'd text your brother, sister-in-law, and mother and tell them that there was no reason that brother couldn't have been with his own children for an hour and that sister-in-law shouldn't have had to cancel her appointment. I would also state that because the brother refuses to be an active parent to his own children, you will not watch the children, so don't even ask. You have to love the entitlement of asking you to drop everything without notice on the assumption that sister-in-law could go and have some self-care time at your expense. Next time, don't tell him what your plans are. Go full on Phoebe and say, I wish I could help, but I don't want to. Oh, and you should get him a $2 sympathy card and just write, Welcome to Parenthood in it. I, female 26, have been in a relationship with a guy, 26, for 3 years. Initially, it was a long-distance relationship, and lately, the same city but living separately. We've always dreamed about moving in together. The issue is, he's never actively done chores in his life. When he lived with his parents, his stay-at-home mom did all the cooking, dishwashing, and laundry. The most he did was occasionally clean when asked to. Then he spent time in dorms and did his laundry when it piled up too high to ignore. I wouldn't call him lazy, just enabled. Through the years, I made it a point that he needed to learn to cook and clean after himself, that I won't be his maid. He said I was bugging him and making it sound like I wanted him as my servant, so I let up. Now we're looking for places, and he joked about how I'll have to teach him how to cook. I just went, excuse me? I made it clear I won't be teaching him to do anything and won't be moving in with him until he learns to be an adult. He says it's not fair, that I can easily teach him. That's what couples do. I disagree. He had 3 years, 2 of which were spent at his parents' home. Ample time. I told him I didn't want to live with the kid that I must teach. So let me know when you're an adult. He's calling me the idiot for that. Not the idiot. The day I left my ex, 3 months after moving in, and over 5 years after being together, suitcase in hand and tears down my face, all he had to say to me was, How do I do the laundry? Take that as you will. In these 3 years, he plans how to use weaponized incompetence to leave all the chores to you. Unfortunately, I doubt he would change if he was raised in a house where his mom cared for everything. He wants a new mommy. He wants you to be his new mommy. And you'll be his new mommy if you let him move in with you. Tell Oedipus to call you when he's finished growing up. Expect that phone call the week after never. And don't get pregnant. You'll have to teach me to cook. Will turn into 1 or 2 half-hearted attempts at learning followed by LOL. Well, I tried, and I can't do it. You'll have to do it, since you're the one who knows how. Nothing will make you lose attraction and build resentment like having to mother your SO. And how utterly refreshing to hear from someone who demands her boyfriend behave like an adult before committing to live with them. Stand your eminently reasonable ground. My husband and I, 30s, haven't been on a trip out of the country for years, while he goes every year with his best friend. His reason for going with him is that they both attend sporting events. This year, my husband told me I could go with him and his friend since they were visiting a new destination. He paid for my ticket and everything else, since I'm a stay-at-home mom and have no job. The kids were left with my mom. However, I found out that he had booked first class for himself and his friend while I got economy. I just couldn't hold my tongue. I confronted him about it, and he at first refused to discuss it. Then when the argument got heated, he yelled, "I paid for your ticket, isn't that enough?" Then kept on about how I should stop acting like I was royalty, and that if I came to think about it, even economy is fine for me, since I technically don't work anyway. I cried because of what he said, but decided not to go altogether. He changed his tone and started begging me to just go with his plan, but I declined. I went to pick up the kids from my mom's house, and he came back 3 hours later, huffing and puffing about what had happened. His friend sent me a text calling me entitled and said this was why he didn't want my husband to take me with them, and I just proved his point. I didn't respond, but I blocked him since he's gotten increasingly rude over the past few months. He, my husband, said I keep crying about being excluded, and this is what happens when he finally decides to include me. So, am I the idiot for not settling for the economy seat? By the way, he's perfectly capable of financing the trip. Not the idiot. He said that you technically don't work anyway. Your labor, raising children, running the household, is work, even if it's unpaid. It's work that enables him to work outside the home and also not have to deal with all the childcare and other domestic labor or pay someone to do it. And if this is the division of labor you and your husband have, you stay home, he works for pay. The money he earns at his job isn't his money. It's your money as a couple. You should leave him. He doesn't think of you as a partner or even as a full person. I'm sorry. I know that sucks to hear, but better to get out now than continue to put up with this man and his foolishness. Wow, he and his friend are idiots. Does your husband always treat you as less than? Does he often talk down to you, exclude you, treat you poorly? Because if I go off this post alone, you need to get out and take your kids with you. Find someone who genuinely loves and respects you. He doesn't care about you as much as he does about his friend, which is backward as heck. Is he having an affair with his friend, or does he just disrespect and not value you as much as he does his friend? Is this just his general view of women? You as his wife and the mother of his children should always take priority over his friend. Why don't you? The fact that his friend texted you to insult you? Screw his friend. He should mind his business. And bringing up why he doesn't take you is sus, because then that means there's been a reason why they haven't included you on these sports trips, which sounds like total bull, because what sport has been happening yearly at the same destination that's so important for men in their 30s to attend out of state? And he can buy this friend expensive crap, but not you, who's literally full-time taking care of his kids for free? Your husband is working the bare minimum. Also, I'm just wondering if something else is going on with these two. A true friend would have said, "Oh my gosh, this is awful. I'm switching seats with you, so you sit with your spouse," and not arguing with you. But seriously, OP, why stay with a man who clearly has zero respect for you? Then when you get divorced, he'll be surprised to learn the money belongs to both of you, regardless of who earns it. Our daughter is turning 18 next month. She's a great kid, always pulled straight A's, is never in any type of trouble, and she's very respectful. However, my wife recently decided to have a talk with her about adult responsibilities. I didn't know about this conversation until my daughter came to me crying because she was scared about living alone. I was initially confused, but then she told me that her mother said she needs to start looking for a job because she'll be expected to get her own place after her birthday. I was appalled because we never discussed throwing her out at 18. When I confronted my wife, she said our daughter wasn't a child anymore and needed our push to become an adult. I told her I was baffled she would exclude me from such a serious decision and conversation. I asked my wife how she expects our kid to make it on minimum wage, especially considering our area's rent is out of control. She then informed me she had planned for us to pay half her rent until she was 20. I asked her why she wanted our kid gone so bad. As the argument intensified, I believe she slipped by saying that she needed the space, her bedroom, for her art studio. I couldn't believe it. I told my wife if her hobby was more important than our daughter, She should be the one looking to rent. However, she took that as me saying move out, but that's not how I meant it. I was implying that she should rent more space for her studio and leave our daughter alone. She didn't believe that's what I actually meant. She then gave me the silent treatment for 3 days. Our daughter, however, was still upset as she processed her mother wanting to move out. She realized moving into a rental meant leaving her 2 cats behind. She's had these cats since she was a young child, and that alone devastated her. She told me, I don't want to turn 18. I don't want to celebrate my birthday. I picked the argument back up with my wife at that point. I said our daughter isn't moving out until she decides on her terms because she's more important than you or your hobby. She looked stunned, and maybe I didn't choose my words wisely in the heat of the moment. I couldn't bear to see our daughter so upset any longer. I don't want her struggling to make ends meet and unable to follow her dreams. The last thing I want for her is to feel rushed. As far as my wife goes, she's not talking to me at all, and she's been cold towards our daughter. Not the idiot. Your wife is. While 18 may very well be the age you become an adult, 18 is not an age where most people are prepared to live on their own. Your wife is wrong because she should have had a conversation with you before arbitrarily making an idiot decision. It may be time to take a good hard look at your marriage. Putting an art studio ahead of a child's welfare and well-being is ludicrous. Not to mention, you don't stop being a parent when your child is 18 or 20 or any other age. You should be there for your kid, and they'll be there for you. If the daughter's kicked out to make space for an art studio, I doubt she'd feel good coming to her parents for help if she ever needs it. I definitely wouldn't. Does she even like her daughter? Is she her stepmom or what? This is the hill to die on. You weren't that far off when you said maybe your wife should rent instead. How unbelievably cruel is she to her child to prioritize an art room over her daughter? Parents who kick out their kids and expect them to be financially independent as soon as they're legal are setting them up for failure. You are the idiot because you made your wife the villain and have clearly put a line in the sand about who's more important, something you won't be able to recant easily, if ever. I have no idea about your history with your wife, but I'd be angry and hurt too if my husband told me my 18-year-old, who I've helped raise, is now more important than me as your partner. Agree. Dude, you should have been preparing your daughter for adulthood for years. Now all of a sudden she's facing the reality of adulting, and she's that unprepared? What high school graduate cries and begs theatrically at the idea of getting a job at an apartment of her own? What did this girl expect to be doing with her adult life, if not either college or a career? Part of the work of parenting is preparing the kid to be independent. I recently got married and moved to Italy to live with my husband and his family. My husband had some work he needed to do on my first official day of living in Italy, so he asked his younger brother and his other brother's wife to show me around. His brother's wife is lovely, but his younger brother is such an arrogant, condescending idiot. Our families have known and worked with each other for years, but I don't know him very well, and I wasn't aware there was some weird competition between our families. We had lunch with his cousins, and the entire time they were criticizing my brother. When I tried to defend him, my younger brother-in-law told me I was a little girl, so I didn't understand these things. I'm older than him, and he's barely an adult, so I was really angry he said that to me. I told him I was going home because he was an idiot, and he told me I couldn't, as my husband told him I needed to stay with him until he came home, and so that's what I was going to do. His brother's wife tried to salvage the situation by telling me to ignore him and suggesting we go shopping. Even the way he agreed to us shopping was annoying, so I was just very annoyed by the time I decided to use the crowd to ditch them and leave. I ended up going to meet my husband and his other brother. My husband was upset I was alone and wanted to know what happened. My husband blew up at his younger brother, who was upset that I left the way I did and made them waste time searching for me when he saw him. He insisted I had issues, and it wasn't his fault that I didn't understand that my loyalties should be to my husband now. I told him he was angry that a little girl had bested him, making him even angrier. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, but you're hilarious. I can understand your husband being disturbed that you're alone in a country new to you, and because his brother ran you off. Inform your husband that you no longer want to be set up to be shown anything by the disrespectful brother that's barely an adult trying to talk down to you. I do think you need to apologize to sister-in-law, though. You probably made her worry. It sounds like they live in a very old-fashioned belief that women are mere accessories and should listen to men. You did the right thing. Don't dare allow this little boy to start telling you how to feel and how you should be acting. He might live in the old ways, but you don't. Of course, I'm also assuming you're not Italian, so you're not obligated to change your ways to fit in. I can't stop laughing at this chauvinist idiot. Someone's big boy hair must have just come, and they don't know how to handle all that raw masculinity yet. Ha ha. Good for you for pushing back on his misogynistic BS. Also, glad your husband had your back also. My mom married Jeff when I was 6 years old. My dad died 2 months earlier, but my parents were divorced then. Jeff and his daughter Emma lived in another state, and we all moved to a new place to start over. I met Jeff and Emma 2 weeks after my dad died. Mom made a fast move because she could now, with Dad not being able to stop her. Right from the get-go, Emma's been clingy, possessive, and kind of a little creepy too. I didn't like her from the first day we met because she told me Jeff was my dad and that I needed to learn how to be a family with them. After all, she wanted a sister and a mom. It upset me so bad because I was missing my dad. He wasn't gone that long, and I had this strange girl tell me to replace him already. I told her that her dad wasn't my dad, and I miss my dad. She told me she didn't care and things were different. I went to my mom, who told me to give Emma and Jeff a chance, and Emma likely got overexcited. Emma has continuously made life so awkward for me. She insisted we share a bedroom, to which my mom and Jeff said yes, despite having a spare bedroom. She started wearing my clothes and telling me I could wear hers. All of this was fine with Mom and Jeff. She hated how I kept in touch with my best friend back home. She hated it even more when, a year later, my best friend's family moved nearby, and we got to see each other again versus just talking over the phone. She was rude to her, told her to leave me alone, and told me I had to spend time with her instead of my best friend. Emma tore up photos of my dad and told me that he was the past and that she and Jeff were the future. She didn't get in trouble for that, but then I got into trouble for not letting it go. I was 9 at the time, I think. Emma tells everyone I'm her sister, and we're so close. Whereas I'm more honest with people I'm close to and don't hold back on how unhappy I am at home. Over the years, nothing has changed much, only she's far more obsessive now. Jeff doesn't like me because he really doesn't like that I don't consider him my dad. I don't think of him as a parental figure, even though I know he is. I don't love him and I hate Emma, which he also knows. My mom has talked to me before about being nicer to Emma and to stop pushing her away so much. She got on my case again because I wouldn't go to summer camp with Emma. We're both teens now, by the way, that she wanted to go to, which allowed almost like a sibling experience. Emma went solo and I stayed, so Mom was on me a lot, and I eventually snapped and told Mom that she needed to fix how possessive Emma was and do better by me because I'm her daughter. I lost my dad and she threw me into such a messed up dynamic and never cared about what it did to me. I told her at the very least that she needed to keep Emma away from me. Mom was mad and said I portrayed Emma as some sort of bad person. She's still mad. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Emma sounds terrifying. To want to have a sister and a mom is one thing, but what she's been doing is creepy. From the way you put it, she's trying to alienate you from everyone and force you to accept her and her dad as the only people you can turn to. It sounds like the beginning of a horror movie. On the other hand, your mom is a major idiot for how she's handled things. I would move out at the first opportunity and cut all contact. This is not healthy, and I'm honestly scared for you. How could you see Jeff as a parental figure when he's failed to make you feel safe in your own home? He needs to get his little demon seed child under control. I'm sorry for the loss of your dad and that your mom is checked out from her job as a parent. Maybe try telling your mother that once you're 18, she will only have to worry about one daughter because it seems like she only cares about your step-sibling anyway. Yikes, I'm so sorry. If you can stay with your best friend's family, I'd look into it and maybe some counseling if you haven't already had any regarding your loss. If I were OP, I would remain silent on my plans and slowly move things out, like contact my paternal grandparents if they're on my side, and get ready to escape. Never disturb the snakes in the grass. My niece, Teen, has lived with me since her parents passed away about a year ago. She knows how to drive, but her driving's not very good. She's only allowed to drive my car when I'm with her to help her learn more. She asked me to let her drive the past few nights, but I was too busy. Last night, she went out of home with my car and slightly hit the wall. I was and still am very angry because my car is new and expensive. I grabbed all her electronics and I told her I'd sell them and use the money to fix my car. She cried and begged me not to because her dad had bought them for her. She promised to pay for them if I didn't sell them, but I don't see that happening because she doesn't have a job. I might be an idiot because I don't need the money and can pay for it myself, but I want to do this to teach her a lesson. My wife says I'm an idiot though, so I don't know. You are the idiot, big time. Teens make mistakes and her recently dead dad gave her those. You couldn't be a bigger idiot in this situation if you sold them. Forgive her and talk her through it like an adult that's in charge of raising a kid. Agreed. I want to emphasize the part about it being a gift from her dad. I lost my mom when I was a kid, and a former stepmother threw away some of the things of mine like this that my mom had given me. It's been over 13 years, and there's still not a day that I don't wish I had those items. Doing something like that wouldn't be a punishment. It would just be cruel. Agree. Finding some chores or something for her to work off the damage would be the appropriate consequence. Getting rid of the possessions her dead parents gave her is not. Not sure how you find this appropriate. It sounds to me like he's doing it out of spite. He says it's to teach her a lesson, but I think really he's angry and it's his way of excusing his behavior. Accidents happen. If you want to teach her something, teach her how to drive better. Update. Thank you for your suggestions. When I saw both her and the car were gone, I knew what had happened. All I could think about was what if something had happened. I was so worried and angry I couldn't think straight. I told her I wouldn't sell them, but I'll keep them until she paid for the damage, which she'll do by babysitting our child, a female toddler. I didn't ask her to do this because she's made it clear that she hates babysitting, but she suggested she could do this. So if she wants to do this, it's fine by me.